This is big time. All right, so today they're coming for the kids. We got a reading of a medical opinion of gender affirming care, which has to be presented today in a Florida court by the Advanced Association of Pediatrics, and I have some defense of gun use. On a side note, I was told to be less opinionated about pedophiles. So I wanted to present my opinion of what I think of pedophiles. So going forward, this is my opinion of pedophiles. I've recently started going back to church. I'm recently trying to find some good, because unfortunately all I seem to see is evil. I think chopping off the parts of children is evil. And when doctors go online and brag about how much a phalloplasty can make them $100,000 for the hospital, I would call that mammon, the worship of wealth. So literally profiting off of chopping off the parts of children seems pretty evil to me. And if you're not going to pick a side, then to me, you're just, you're not worth anything. So going forward, that'll be my opinion of what I think of pedophiles. You can put a millstone around your neck and, in the words of Jesus, cast yourself into the sea. Anyway, they're coming for the kids. Transgender male at center of YMCA locker room controversy shared disturbing images of young girls. I'm not sure if that's a disturbing image, but we'll get into it. I haven't read this yet. The trans-identified male at the center of controversy after using the women's locker room in a California YMCA has a disturbing social media history, Redux has found. On January 11th, video clips from a Santee City Council meeting went viral on social media after a teen girl took to the podium to report her concerns about a trans-identified male who had been allowed to use the women's facilities at the local YMCA. Rebecca Phillips, 17, became emotional as she recounted that she had seen a naked male in the women's locker room one night after finishing her workout and using the showers. Phillips said that when she later questioned YMCA staff about the presence of the man in the women's facilities, so when she saw a man walking around with his dick and balls out, she was told that he was indeed allowed to shower wherever he pleased. Oh, wow, you misgendered him. I'm surprised I haven't put you in prison yet. 17-year-old girl teared up as she told Santee City Council that she saw a nude male in the women's locker room at Santee YMCA. YMCA staff reportedly told Rebecca Phillips it was within his right to be there, according to their policies on gender identity. So my line in the sand is to stay the fuck away from kids. You're a man, you have a dick and balls. You're not allowed in women's spaces. Oh, is that going to cause you to kill yourself? Well, that's your problem, not mine. That's my opinion. Stay away from girls. Stay away from children.
Good evening, council members and residents of Santee behind me. My name is Rebecca Phillips, and I'm 17 years old. I am not a resident of...
And I also blame a lot of women who supported this in the beginning, This is partially all the people's fault. 5 years ago, conservatives were saying, well, what happens when they want access to women's spaces? And everyone said, oh, that won't happen. Oh, here you go. Now they're putting men in women's prisons. And then everyone goes, wow, these female prisoners are getting pregnant. And the rapist goes, oh, I don't know, I'm a woman with a dick and balls. But, everyone just pretends, right?
Santee, but I am employed at a local restaurant, the Omelet Factory, and I work out regularly at the Santee YMCA. Just 2 weeks ago, after finishing my shift at my job, I went to the gym to swim laps. As I was showering after my workout, I saw a naked male in the women's locker room. I immediately went back into the shower, terrified, and hid behind their flimsy excuse for a curtain until he was gone. I ran into a bathroom stall to change as quickly as I could, organizing my thoughts to share with the people at the front desk. As I did so, I could only think of my 5-year-old sister, who I bring to this gym during the summer to enjoy their water slides.
That's right. A man with a dick and balls has access to your naked 5-year-old sister. Are you going to take a stand yet? Are you going to draw a line in the sand? Can I have an opinion about this?
This is the YMCA, where hundreds of children spend their summer afternoons
You shouldn't be crying. You should be pissed the fuck off.
in childcare camps. This is the YMCA where my little sister took gymnastics lessons. The locker room was supposed to be her safe haven to gossip with her friends and shower and change. When I asked the YMCA management what their policy was regarding transgenders, they confirmed that the man that I saw was indeed allowed to shower wherever he pleased. As long as you are not a red flag on Megan's Law, the California Sex Offender Registry, a grown male can shower alongside a teenage girl at your YMCA location here in Santee. I was made to feel as though I had done something wrong when I...
And they're allowed in prisons with women, and they're allowed in grape shelters with women, and they're allowed in children's camps with little girls. Why would a grown man argue and fight for access to changing in a locker room with little 5-year-old girls? What kind of a person argues for that? What is your opinion of a grown man with a dick and balls calling themselves a woman and saying, I have a right to be around naked 5-year-old girls? What's your opinion of that?
I talked to people at the YMCA. Somehow,
I know what Jesus would say.
the indecent exposure of a male to a female minor was an inconvenience to them. When my dad spoke to the sheriff's office, they told him that he should never allow me to shower there ever again. The YMCA wouldn't let my father speak to the manager of the Santee branch. After waiting several days, he finally received a call from Terry Moss, who is the director of membership for San Diego County. She informed my dad that I was not in any danger at the time of the incident, that I was safe. But I ask you this, I'm assuming all of you either have a wife.
I want to bring up a point here. You know how people, especially Democrats, always make a big deal about red flags and people with guns? Oh, this person who's posted all these images and hate on social media, and these people that talk about they got to do this and a manifesto, and they visit these websites and this and that. Those are red flags. Is it a red flag when a grown man says they should be allowed to shower in the same room with 5-year-old little girls? Is that a red flag?
A sister, daughters, or granddaughters, or are a woman yourself. Could you knowingly send an underage girl into a room where there was a naked male and say that she was not in danger, that she was safe, or more importantly, that this was right? The fact that we are now tailoring our privacy policies and bathroom laws around transgenders, ignoring the blatant threat to safety that this poses, is obscene. The safety of children, girls, is on the chopping block. And this issue is not unique to one political party. Both Democrats and Republicans whom I have shared this story with have all been equally disgusted.
Yeah, but what did they do about it? Politicians are great at talking, very vague, abstract, touchy-feely, flowery, we're all going to get along, pie in the sky bullshit. But you try to nail them down on something objective, concrete, laid out, an actual plan.
So I implore you all to take action. With great privilege comes great responsibility.
Peter Parker.
Whether it's requiring transgenders to use the single stall family restrooms or making them use the bathroom which aligns with their biological
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, they cut her off. In other words, you have a dick and balls. Go use the bathroom for people who have dick and balls. Stay the fuck away from our kids. That should be easy, right? Apparently not. All right, so the medical opinion. I covered a story yesterday about Florida's demanding. There's this judge saying that the American Academy of Pediatrics has to give evidence for the support of child sex changes. And I wanted to go through 2019, Canadian sexologist James Cantor was so alarmed by the AAP's position statement that he published a scathing rebuttal, debunking it point by point, in which he argued that the AAP told neither the truth nor the whole truth, committing sins of commission and omission, asserting claims easily falsified by anyone caring to do any fact-checking at all. So I put the link in the description of this article. You can click on it. So I'm just going to go through some of it today. The American Academy of Pediatrics recently published a policy statement entitled Ensuring Comprehensive Director, Toronto Sexuality Center, Toronto, Canada, Associate Professor, University of Toronto, Faculty of Medicine, Canada. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, recently published a policy statement entitled Ensuring Comprehensive Care and Support for Transgender and Gender Diverse Children and Adolescents. It was quite a remarkable document, although almost all clinics and professional associations in the world use what's called the watchful waiting approach to helping GD children. The AAP statement rejected that consensus, endorsing only genital mutilation. Let me just call it what it is. Endorsing only what they're, quote unquote, gender affirmation. With AAP taking such a dramatic departure from other professional associations, I was immediately curious about what evidence led them to that conclusion. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. As I read the works on which they based their policy, however, I was pretty surprised, rather alarmed actually. These documents simply did not say what AAP claimed they did. In fact, the references that AAP cited as the basis of their policy instead outright contradicted that policy, repeatedly endorsing watchful waiting. The AAP statement was also remarkable in what it left out, namely the outcomes research on GD children. There have been 11 follow-up studies of GD children, of which AAP cited one, Whalen and Cohen-Katinis, 2008, doing so without actually mentioning the outcome data it contained. The literature on outcomes was neither reviewed, summarized, nor subjected to meta-analysis to be considered in the aggregate. It was merely disappeared. I have presented the complete list of the outcome studies in this blog before. They appear again at the bottom of this page together with their results for reference. As they make clear, every follow-up study of GD children without exception found the same thing. By puberty, the majority of GD children ceased to want to transition. Let me read that again. By puberty, the majority of GD children ceased to want to transition. AAP is, of course, free to establish whatever policy it likes on whatever basis it likes, by any assertion that their policy is based on evidence is demonstrably false, as detailed below. AAP divided clinical approaches into three types: conversion therapy, watchful waiting, and gender affirmation. It rejected the first two and endorsed gender affirmation as the only acceptable alternative. Most lighters will likely be familiar already with attempts to use conversion therapy to change sexual orientation. With regard to gender identity, AAP wrote, conversion or reparative treatment models are used to prevent children and adolescents from identifying as transgender or to dissuade them from exhibiting gender-diverse expressions. Reparative approaches have been proven to not only unsuccessful, but also deleterious and are considered outside the mainstream of traditional medical practice. These claims struck me as odd because there are no studies of conversion therapy for gender identity. Studies of conversion therapy have been limited to sexual orientation, specifically the sexual orientation of adults, not gender identity, and not children in any case. The articles AAP cited to support their claim, reference 38, is indeed a classic and well-known review, but it is a review of sexual orientation research only. Neither gender identity nor even children received even a single mention in it. Indeed, the narrower scope of that article should be clear to anyone reading even just its title. The practice and ethics of sexual orientation conversion therapy. AAP continued, saying that conversion approaches for GD children have already been rejected by medical consensus, citing 5 sources. This claim struck me just as odd, however. I recalled associations banning conversion therapy for sexual orientation, but not for gender identity, exactly because there is no evidence for generalizing from adult sexual orientation to childhood gender identity. So I started checking AAP citations for that, and their sources too pertained only to sexual orientation, not gender identity. What AAP sources did repeatedly emphasize was that 1, sexual orientation of adults is unaffected by conversion therapy and any other known intervention. 2, gender dysphoria in childhood before puberty desists in a majority of cases, becoming cisgendered homosexuality in adulthood, again, regardless of any known intervention. And 3, gender dysphoria in childhood persisting after puberty tends to persist entirely. That is, in the context of gender dysphoria children, I guess in GD, so gender dysphoria GD, I'm going to say GD a lot in this article probably. It simply makes no sense to refer to externally induced conversion. The majority of children convert to cisgender or desist from transgender regardless of any attempt to change them. Conversion only makes sense with regard to adult sexual orientation because, unlike childhood gender identity, adult homosexuality never or nearly never spontaneously changes to heterosexuality. Although gender identity and sexual orientation may often be analogous and discussed together with regard to social or political values and to civil rights, they are nonetheless distinct with distinct origins, needs, and responses to medical and mental health care choices. Although AAP emphasizes to the reader that gender identity is not synonymous with sexual orientation, they went ahead to treat them as such nonetheless. To return to AAP's fidelity to its sources, reference 29 was a practice guideline from the Committee on Quality Issues of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. Despite AAP applying the source to gender identity, AACAP, the Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, was quite unambiguous regarding their intent to speak to sexual orientation and only to sexual orientation. Principle 6, quote, Principle 6, clinicians should be aware that there is no evidence that sexual orientation can be altered through therapy and that attempts to do so may be harmful. There is no established evidence that change in a predominant, enduring homosexual pattern of development is possible. Although sexual fantasies can, to some degree, be suppressed or repressed by those who are ashamed of or in conflict about them, sexual desire is not a choice. However, behavior, social role, and to a degree, identity and self-acceptance are. Although operant conditioning modifies sexual fetishes, it does not alter homosexuality. Psychiatric efforts to alter sexual orientation through reparative therapy in adults have found little or no change in sexual orientation while causing significant risk of harm to self-esteem. Whereas AAP cites AACAP to support gender affirmation as the only affirmative for treating GD children, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry actual view was decidedly neutral, noting the lack of evidence. Quote, given the lack of empirical evidence from randomized controlled trials of the efficacy of treatment aimed at eliminating gender discordance, the potential risks of treatment, and longitudinal evidence that gender discordance persists in only a small minority of untreated cases arising in childhood, further research is needed on predictors of persistence and desistance of childhood gender discordance, as well as the long-term risks and benefits of intervention before any treatment to eliminate gender discordance can be endorsed. Moreover, whereas AAP rejected watchful waiting, what AACAP recommended was, in general, it is desirable to help adolescents who may be experiencing gender distress and dysphoria to defer sex reassignment until adulthood. So not only did AAP contribute to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, something which they never said, but also AAP withheld from readers AACAP's actual view. In reference 39, Bine, 2016, also addressed only sexual orientation, doing so very clearly. Reparative therapy is a subset of conversion therapies based on the premise that same-sex attraction are reparations for childhood trauma. Wow. Reparative therapy is a subset of conversion therapies based on the premise that same-sex attraction are reparations for childhood trauma. Thus, practitioners of reparative therapy believe that exploring, isolating, and repairing these childhood emotional wounds will often result in reducing same-sex attraction. That's heavy. Bind does not say this of gender identity, as the AAP statement misrepresents. I have to read that one more time. Reparative therapy is a subset of conversion therapies based on the premise that same-sex attraction are reparations for childhood trauma. Thus, practitioners of reparative therapy believe that exploring, isolating, and repairing these childhood emotional wounds will often result in reducing same-sex attractions. Wow. In AAP reference 40, Cohen, Ketnes et al. 2008 did finally pertain to gender identity. However, this article never mentions conversion therapy. Rather, in the study, the authors presented that clinics lowering of their minimum age for cross-sex hormone treatment from age 18 to 16, which they did on the basis of a series of studies showing the high rates of success with each age group. Although it did strike me as odd that AAP picked as support against conversion therapy an article that did not mention conversion therapy, I could imagine AAP cited the article as an example of what the mainstream of traditional medical practice consists of. The logic being that conversion therapy falls outside what an ideal clinic like this one provides. However, what this clinic provides is the very watchful waiting approach that AAP rejected. The approach espoused by Cohen, Ketnes, and the other clinics mentioned in the source, Ghent, Boston also, and now formerly Toronto, is to make puberty halting interventions available at age 12 because pubertal suppression may give adolescents, together with the attending health professional, more time to explore their gender identity without the distress of the developing secondary sex characteristics. The precision of the diagnosis may thus be improved. I'll read that again. Pubertal suppression may give adolescents, together with the attending health professional, more time to explore their gender identity without the distress of the developing secondary sex characteristics. The precision of the diagnosis may thus be improved. Reference 41 presented a very interesting history spanning the 60s to the 90s about how feminine boys and tomboyish girls came to be recognized as mostly pre-homosexual, and how that status came to be entered into the DSM at the same time as homosexuality was being removed from the DSM. Conversion therapy is never mentioned. Indeed, to the extent that Bryant mentions treatment at all, it is to say that treatment is entirely irrelevant to his analysis. An important omission from the DSM is the discussion of the kinds of treatment that GIDC children should receive. This omission is a general orientation of the DSM and not unique to GIDC. How this article supports AAP's claim is a mystery. Moreover, how AAP could cite a 2006 history discussing events of the 1990s and earlier to support a claim about the current consensus in this quickly evolving discussion remains all the more unfathomable. Cited last in this section was a one-paragraph press release from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. Written during the early stages of the American Psychiatric Association update of the DSM, the statement asserted simply that the WPATH Board of Directors strongly urges the de-psychopathologization of gender variance worldwide. Very reasonable debate can and should be had regarding whether gender dysphoria should be removed from the DSM as homosexuality was, and WPATH was well within its purview to assert that it should. Now that the DSM revision process is years completed, however, history has seen that APA ultimately retained the diagnostic categories, rejecting WPATH's urging. This makes AAP's logic entirely backwards. That WPATH request to depathologize I'm terrible, depathologize gender dysphoria was rejected. Let me start over. That WPATH's request to depathologize gender dysphoria was rejected suggests that it is WPATH's view and therefore AAP's policy, which fall outside the mainstream of traditional medical practice. AAP based this entire line of reasoning on their belief that conversion therapy is being used to prevent children and adolescents from identifying as transgender. That claim is left without citation or support. In contrast, what is said by AAP sources is delaying affirmation should not be construed as conversion therapy or an attempt to change gender identity in the first place. Nonetheless, AAP seems to appear to be doing exactly that, simply relabeling non-gender affirmation models as conversion clinics. Although AAP and anyone else may reject what the label to be conversion therapy purely on the basis of political or personal values, there is no evidence to back the AAP's stated claim about the existing science on gender identity at all, never mind gender identity of children. AAP also rejected the watchful waiting approach, repeatedly calling it outdated. The criticisms AAP provided, however, again defied the existing evidence and even its own sources, repeatedly calling that model the current standard. According to AAP, gender affirmation is in contrast to the outdated approach in which a child's gender diverse assertions are held as possibly true until an arbitrary age, often after pubertal onset, when they can be considered valid, an approach that authors of the literature have termed watchful waiting. This outdated approach does not serve the child because critical support is withheld. Watchful waiting is based on binary notions of gender in which gender diversity and fluidity is pathologized. In watchful waiting, it is also assumed that notions of gender identity become fixed at a certain age. The approach is also influenced by a group of early studies with validity concerns, methodologic flaws, and limited follow-up on children who identified as TGD and by adolescents did not seek further treatment. D. Sisters. I was surprised first by the AAP's claim that pubertal onset was somehow arbitrary. The literature, including AAP's sources, repeatedly indicated the pivotal importance of puberty, noting that outcomes strongly diverge at puberty. According AAP reference 29, in pre-pubertal boys with gender discordance, including many without any mental health treatment, the cross-gender wishes usually fade over time and do not persist into adulthood, with only 2.2 to 11.9% continuing to experience gender discordance. Whereas, quote, when gender variance with the desire to be the other sex is present in adolescence, this desire usually does persist through adulthood. Similarly, according to AAP reference 40, symptoms of gender identity disorder at pre-pubertal age decrease or even disappear in a considerable percentage of children. Estimates range from 80 to 95%. Symptoms of gender identity disorder at pre-pubertal age decrease or even disappear in a considerable percentage of children. Estimates range from 80 to 95%. Therefore, any intervention in childhood would seem premature and inappropriate. However, GID persisting into early puberty appears to be highly persistent. Wow. Follow-up studies of pre-pubertal transition differ from post-pubertal transition is the very meaning of non-arbitrary. AAP gave readers exactly the reverse of what was contained in its own sources. If AAP were correct in saying that puberty is an arbitrarily selected age, then AAP will be able to offer another point with as much empirical backing as puberty has. Next, it was not clear on what basis AAP could say that watchful waiting withholds support. AAP cited no support for its claim. The people in such programs often receive substantial support during this period. Also unclear is on what basis AAP could already know exactly which treatments are critical and which are not. Answering that question is the very purpose of this entire endeavor. Indeed, the logic of AAP's claim appears entirely circular. If one were preconceived that the gender affirmation model is the only acceptable one, then watchful waiting withholds critical support only in the sense that it delays gender affirmation. The method one has already decided to be critical. Although AAP's next claim did not have a citation appearing at the end of its sentence, binary notions of gender was mentioned both in references 45 and 47. Specifically, both pointed out that existing outcome studies have been about people transitioning from one sex to the other, rather than from one sex to an in-between or combination of masculine and feminine features. Neither reference presented this as a reason to reject the results from the existing studies of complete transition. However, which is how AAP cast it. Although it is indeed true that the outcome data has been about complete transition, some future studies showing that partial transition shows a different outcome for them would not invalidate what is known about complete transition. Indeed, data showing that partial transition gives better outcomes than complete transition would, once again, support the watchful waiting approach, which AAP rejected. Next was a vague reference alleging concerns and criticisms about early studies. Had AAP indicated what those alleged concerns and flaws were, or which studies they were, then it would be possible to evaluate or address them. Nonetheless, the argument is a red herring because all of the later studies showed the same result as did the early studies. Any such allegation is necessarily moot. Reference 47 was a 1.5-page commentary which offhandedly mentions criticisms previously made of 3 of the 11 outcome studies of GD children, but does not provide any analysis or discussion. The only specific claim was that studies, whether they were early or late, had limited follow-up periods, the logic being that had outcome researchers lengthened the follow-up period, then people who seemed to have desisted might have returned to the clinic as cases of persistence after interruption. Although one could debate the merits of that prediction, AAP and Olson instead simply withheld from the reader the result from testing that prediction directly. Steensma and Cohen-Katenis, 2015, conducted another analysis of their cohort by then ages 19 to 28 and found that 3.3%, 5 people of the sample of 150 later returned. That is, the childhood sample showing 70% desistance instead showed 66.7% desistance in long-term follow-up. It is up to the reader to decide whether that difference challenges the aforementioned conclusion that the majority of GD children cease to want to transition by puberty or represent a grasping at straws. Reference 45 did not support the claim that watchful waiting is outdated. Indeed, that source said the very opposite, referring to watchful waiting as the current approach. Put another way, if clinicians are straying from SOC 7 guidelines for social transition, not abiding by the watchful waiting model favored by the standards, we will have adolescents who have been consistently living in their affirmed gender since age 3, 4, and 5, or 5. Moreover, Einsaft et al. Said there are cases in which they too would still use watchful waiting. When a child's gender identity is unclear, the watchful waiting approach can give the child and their family time to develop a clearer understanding and is not necessarily in contrast to the needs of the child. Einhath et al. Are indeed critical of the watchful waiting model, which they feel is applied too conservatively, but they did not come close to the position the AAP policy espouses. When Einsaft summarizes the potential benefits and potential risks both to transitioning and not transitioning, the AAP presents an ironically binary narrative. In its policy statement, AAP told neither the truth nor the whole truth, committing sins both of commission and of omission, asserting claims easily falsified by anyone caring to do any fact-checking at all. All right, so this is the part that was in the post-millennial article. AAP claimed this policy statement is focused specifically on children and youth that identify as TGD rather than the larger LGBTQ population. However, much of that evidence was about sexual orientation, not gender identity. AAP claimed current available research and expert opinion from clinical and research leaders will serve as the basis for recommendations, page 1-2. However, they provided recommendations entirely unsupported and even in direct opposition to that research and opinion. AAP is advocating for something far in excess of mainstream practice and medical consensus. In the presence of compelling evidence, this is just what is called for. The problems in Rafferty 2018, however, do not constitute merely a misquote, a misinterpretation of an ambiguous statement or missing a reference or two. Rather, AAP's statement is a systematic exclusion and misrepresentation of entire literatures. Not only did AAP fail to provide extraordinary evidence, it failed to provide the evidence at all. Indeed, AAP's recommendations are despite the existing evidence. All right, that was a long ad. That was our first read. If you're still with me, that's awesome. If not, I understand. And we'll head back over to the transgender. I left here because I needed a break. I was so pissed off. So this girl, to come back to the girl, she was at a meeting. She was basically saying biological men need to stay in their biological bathrooms. The clip led to protests being organized outside of the YMCA by citizens concerned about child safeguarding and women's rights to single-sex spaces. On January 18th, Christine Lily Wren Wood, 66, came forward during one of the protests and stated, "I'm the scary transgender woman who that child misidentified as a man." As previously reported by Redux, Wood, a Navy veteran, had won a lawsuit against a fitness center who refused him access to the women's locker rooms and received an undisclosed amount by way of financial compensation in 2021. The lawsuit alleged that the Crunch Fitness Gym and its owner, John Romeo, discriminated against Wood on the basis of his self-declared gender identity by denying him access to the women's locker rooms and bathrooms. On Wednesday evening, residents of Santee gathered again at a city council meeting to share their views on the incident during a public comment section. Wood was allowed to speak first and was granted 3 minutes of podium time, 1 full minute more than other speakers were allowed. Well, yeah, of course. In his statement, Wood condemned what he called disgusting, organized hatred and lies, which he said were intended to demonize him and to vilify members of the transgender community. Wood also claimed to be a mom and a grandmom. All right, so this guy's delusional. You're not allowed near my kids. You're not allowed near naked girls. That's my line in the sand, okay? While addressing the city council, Wood was flanked by supporters who held up signs reading, "We Heart Chrissy," and waving transgender pride flags. "Please look at me. Listen to the sound of my voice. I am a threat to no one. In the year I've been a member of the Y, children have attended summer camp and have been with their parent and grandparent in the women's locker room with me, and there has never been an incident." Yeah, probably because the parents and grandparents are with them. Several of Wood's supporters spoke in his defense during the meeting. One water aerobics instructor, Peggy Wiley, stated that she had been in the locker room during the incident Rebecca Phillips had described. She says Phillips had asked her if Wood was a man, to which Wiley responded, "No, that's a woman." So we have another Peggy Wiley, huh? Yeah, another pedo adjacent. A man with a trans pride flag sticking out of his jacket pocket also took to the podium and defended Wood's presence in the women's locker room. Jason Fry, president of the Humanist Association of San Diego, called Phillips' dehumanizing name during his address. "We need to protect people. We do not protect creepy little voyeurs spying on people in restrooms, causing problems with people just minding their own business," Fry said. "I would recommend that the city take some kind of stance to say that that type of bigotry is not acceptable here, because it is clear that that type of license leads to suicide attempts." Oh, that's right. That's right. If I don't allow you to take off your clothes near my children, near my little girls, then you're going to kill yourself. Well, you know what, motherfucker? That's your problem. Okay? I have sympathy for people who commit suicide. I have anger at people who ignore the common signs. I've had people commit suicide in my own family. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that doesn't give you the right to be in your children. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you choose to kill yourself. Okay? Your choice. Doesn't mean I won't show some sort of sympathy or compassion, but in this case, you're saying that you're going to kill yourself if you can't take a shower and you're a 5-year-old? Do I got to show you the millstone again? For those people who are calling to see people's genitalia, I want to see your browser histories because it seems like you're quite obsessed with this. Redux has now found that Wood has a disturbing digital footprint, which includes sexualizing young girls and the G and the R word. Well, of course, Redux is going to go in. Here we go. During a deep dive of Wood's social media history. Oh, interesting. They used the same approach. Yeah. Redux uncovered multiple photos uploaded by Wood of little girls, often donning adult dress. The pictures were usually superimposed with bizarre captions in which Wood compared himself to the children. Oh, love is love, right? Love has no age. Okay. In other instances, Wood paired a photo of himself next to the image of a little girl with a fair complexion and blue eyes. "What will your daughter look like?" reads one caption. Another says, "What did you look like as a baby?" and depicts a toddler in highly sexualized adult attire. One photo captioned, "What would your baby version look like?" This is a baby version. Christine shows a young girl sitting in what appears to be a toy car, wearing ripped jeans and an off-shoulder top. Even a friend of Woods took issue with the photo, commenting sexualizing a child is just wrong. Woods responded, Not everyone agrees that this is sexualization of a child. I completely disagree with your interpretation of this photo. I completely disagree with your mental delusion that you're allowed to take showers next to naked little girls. Other images shared by Wood place his photo next to that of a pregnant woman. In 2020 post, Wood says he will finish the year pregnant and suggests he will give birth to baby girls. All right, you're delusional, bro. Some posts have a more overtly sexual theme. One photo posted appears to be from an online gimmick quiz taken by Wood, with the caption reading, "How perverted are you?" Wood's score reads 637% perverted, detailing that even the most innocent of moments can turn into something raunch. I don't care about that. Woods' social media history reveals that he has an apparent friendship with another self-described cross-dresser and transgender who sometimes calls Woods his lovely wife. Arlen Reese and Wood have an extensive history interacting on Facebook, commenting and liking each other's posts. Disturbingly, Weiss frequently uploads images of terrified young women bound and gagged in photo shoots intended to look like sexual assaults or kidnappings. Red flag. Democrats love to use that against gun owners, but yeah, this is some cartel Hamas looking shit. On his own account, I like how the media made the big deal about the shooter in Buffalo, about his manifesto, but this person can post this sort of thing and nothing, right? On his own accord, Wood posted a cartoon referencing feminization, a genre of porn in which males are forcibly transitioned to fulfill a sexual fetish. The image shows two characters who appear to be female, with the caption reading, "Yeah, that's all right. I don't care about that." These, to me, is a hot. The kids and this is more evidence to me than a meme. You know what I'm saying? Other posts of Woods found by Redux include a photo of women's underwear laid out on his bed, as well as making reference to pole dancing and pornography. Woods also posted photos of himself wearing a schoolgirl uniform while at work. Amongst Woods' visible Facebook friends includes a number of men who consider themselves sissies and cross-dressers and who post almost purely pornographic content of both themselves and sexualized young women. Well, if those women chose to sexualize themselves, that's on them. I don't know what to say. During the Santee City Council meeting on Wednesday, some speakers who took the podium disagreed that men like Wood should be granted access to areas where women and girls undress and shower. At least someone's speaking out. Look, these people have an opinion. Former Miss California, Carrie Prejean Bowler, moved to speak and declared that she was identifying as Christine Wood and as such should be allowed to speak for 3 minutes instead of the 2-minute limit the public had been granted. There is a war on women, children, and the truth, and the enemy is disguised in high heels, lipstick, and a shaved beard. Good for you. I am a woman, a true woman, and I'm here tonight because I have something called a motherly instinct. This is about the protection of children and women, she stated, and called for single-sex facilities to remain the standard policy. It doesn't matter if you chop your penis off. It doesn't make you a woman. It makes you unwell. Based. Tracy Thill, who organized a January 18th rally against gender identity policies along with members of Santee Parents for Choice, called on city council members to declare to renew the property lease in the YMCA building until a policy is changed so that biological men stay out of women's locker rooms and bathrooms. 2 days ago, Wood gave a statement to the Times of San Diego in which he denounced the 17-year-old girl who had raised complaints as a little witch who has spread lies from the very beginning. I see. Well, there you go. Apparently, if this man isn't allowed to be around this girl's 5-year-old naked sister in the shower room, he's going to go home and commit suicide. And that's your fault. Okay. All right, let's get to the defensive gun use. I'm getting sick. So anyway, I'm big time. I cover defensive gun use. This is the Gun Violence Archive. This is where I get all my stats. Independently run website. To date, there have been 96 defensive gun uses, which you're probably never going to hear about at all on the mainstream media and not even on Fox News because, guns are scary. See how many mass shootings there have been? 54. There's been almost double the number of people defending themselves. So, link in the description. And we'll go to the first one. I think this is coming out of Ohio or maybe Arizona. Let me take a look. Phoenix.
And then I saw that guy whom they were having some conversation. He went on the floor.
The head store clerk at the Sinclair gas station on 12th and Highland recalling the terrifying moment he witnessed an armed robbery turned shooting.
I went to the door and saw that happening. I called 911.
According to Phoenix police, 24-year-old Aaron Frazier Jr. approached a man pumping gas. Police say Frazier pulled a gun in an attempt to rob the man. The man, whose identity has not been released, then fired several shots, killing Frazier.
Shouldn't have happened, but things happen. So
The store clerk telling me he recognized the man being robbed, describing him as kind and polite.
he's a regular customer. The pump gas. I mean, something could have been really bad and ugly.
But now he's worried for the future of the store and their safety.
This is the first time something like this happened here. Never ever. Pretty good. I mean, it's mainly a neighborhood. All family people staying here. And, in stores, some things always have, not to that magnitude.
Others who pump gas here say the same.
It's not what I expected. I do know that, there is some violent crime around here. I just haven't really, experienced it firsthand or been, I guess, this close to it.
Phoenix police say they have not arrested the man who fired those shots, but they are investigating this case further. We'll let you know if anything
right.
changes.
Cool. Sounds like a defensive gun use to me. I like how the media didn't paint the guy who defended himself as, white supreme cheese supreme pizza or anything like that. I like that they interview the owner, and I like that the owner didn't have a problem with the guy defending himself. They didn't say, oh, the gun violence. I like that the person hasn't been charged with defending himself, but just two things I want to point out that everybody's not paying attention. The cops weren't there. An armed robbery occurred at a gas station. No cops were around. I'm not blaming the cops. This is no shade at cops. We're just pointing out the fact that in this situation, they weren't there. And this person is alive and survived an attempted armed robbery because he had a gun. I just hope that's obvious. All right. And one more story. This seems to be a win for senior citizens. Coming out of Chicago. Yay, senior citizens, and yay, Second Amendment.
Ben Judy, Chicago police just pulled down the crime tape after collecting what was left of any possible evidence from the crime scene. Those police officials say the victim, that 80-year-old man, is in critical condition at Resurrection Hospital after the two suspects before shot of him.
Chicago police are investigating a Northwest Side home invasion and shooting that left an 80-year-old man badly beaten and a suspect shot in the chest. Investigators say it happened at 10:30 on the 8500 block of West Catherine in Chicago's O'Hare neighborhood.
Wow.
Police say the 80-year-old man was inside a home on the block when the suspects, a man and woman, knocked on the door. After he opened the door, police say the suspects entered the home without permission, then a fight broke out. Police say the 80-year-old, a Foyd card holder, shot at the suspects, hitting the man in the chest.
Foyd card. So I think that's Chicago's version of concealed carry. Or I think Chicago is one of those stupid states where you have to have a carry permit for your home, and then you have to get another carry permit to walk around your property. Kind of weird. Like in Pennsylvania, where I live, you can actually, as long as you pass all the background checks and you buy the gun from an FFL, you can legally own guns in your home. But to carry them concealed, you have to actually have a license to carry. And then once you have the license to carry, like in Pennsylvania, if you don't have a license to carry, if you have a gun in your car, it has to be unloaded, and the ammunition and the gun have to be in different parts of the car. and the gun actually has to be in a case. Now, it's that way for long guns in Pennsylvania. I have my concealed carry, but that I can never have a loaded long gun in my car. I believe that's only for like cops and feds and shit. But if you have a concealed carry in Pennsylvania, you can legally carry handguns on your person concealed in your car, which is super based because that gives you a chance. But yeah, Chicago is just one of those crazy places. I believe you got to have a permit for the home and a permit for the city. But anyway,
chest. The woman was not injured. One woman who lives on the block who did not want to show her face out of fear for her safety said she is heartbroken for her neighbor.
I was in shock when I heard it because, it's like in the middle of the day and more close to your home. It's really scary to hear.
The suspects drove to Resurrection Hospital, where the victim is also being treated. Chicago police say the alleged home invader who was shot is in critical condition. Both suspects are in police custody. Watch.
good. I don't feel sorry for you. Again, two more things I'm going to say. Just pointing out the obvious here. Apparently, two people performed. So these two people did a George Floyd. They forced their way into a home, just like Floyd pretended to be a water main, work for the water company. And then him and 5 other men forced their way into the home of Araceli Enriquez. They did a George Floyd, start beating up this 80-year-old man. And because this 80-year-old man had a gun, that saved his life. So again, the gun saved the life of this man. And he wasn't able to grab his cell phone. Grabbing his cell phone would not have saved him. Shooting the home invader saved him. Based. One for senior citizens. Long one today. So anyway, I'm big time, and that's news to me.